This is Naama Blonder, an architect and urban designer with Smart Density. She spoke about a proposal to upzone major streets.
Today I covered major streets, which is a new policy that council is actually voting on it today as we speak. So we don't know yet if it's approved or not and under what exactly conditions, but it's a very exciting policy under the EON, which is expanding housing options in neighborhoods. So far you are more familiar with garden suites, laneway suites, and the multiplex, and the major street is the the major policy under this change. So the major streets will allow developments or new buildings up to 6 stories in height or 30 or 60 unit cap, that's the debate, on major streets in neighborhoods. So neighborhoods is the yellow belt in the land use map, and major streets, which is another map that identifies what is those major streets. So think about streets like Dufferin, Christie, Lansdowne, streets that are, you think about them, they're pretty, they feel like Bloor and College, yet you're not allowed to do anything on them, unlike Bloor and College and Dundas. So it's kind of an interesting difference.
What hurdles will this policy overcome?
So far, you have those streets that, on Lansdowne and Dufferin, that are, most of them are even 20-meter wide, right? Like they feel like a street that could definitely accommodate more than a single family or 2-story, which is the current situation. Getting the major streets to be as of right means that you will pass the approval process. So you won't have to go to committee of adjustment. You won't have to have a political discussion if this should be allowed or not. It will be as of right. It will be in the zoning, and developers or builders could go ahead and start from site plan or building permit, depending on how many units they are planning to build.
Why is the site plan such a big challenge?
Site plan is a process that you are required to have if you have a building of more than 10 units, so 11 and above. The process is where you basically circulate your application among all the technical departments. So think of transportation, waste management, urban design. The challenge is that it takes a very long time. You get comments. Sometimes the comments are conflicted between the two departments. It's a process. It takes at least a year from my experience. And if we want to see those smaller developments, like 30 units or 60 units getting built, we can't expect them to carry the same processes that much larger buildings could carry more easily. I'm not saying it's easy, but easier. If we want to see those smaller buildings getting built, we need to make it as easy as possible. So getting it as of right is great. Now site plan needs to be as smooth as possible.
If you had a magic wand that could change anything in the planning system, what would you change?
So believe it or not, it's actually not about the EON or the yellow belt. For me, it's a much greater aspect that I see and hear from community members, that maybe I would even be, maybe blunt and say that it's oftentimes more of a generational gap. But you still hear those voices that object any change in the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are for them, and you shouldn't change anything. You shouldn't change the character, which is a word that I have an issue with it when it comes to getting to be an excuse to why we shouldn't build more. And that is something that I am having a very hard time, talking to people that say, they're lucky enough, fortunate enough to own a single family home steps away from a subway, and our planning system allows them to also dictate that other buildings won't get built. And that is a systematic problem that we need to overcome in this city.